Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we unravel the mysteries lurking in the shadows and explore the stories that send shivers down your spine. From unsolved crimes to paranormal encounters, from eerie legends to the unknown, we're here to take you on a journey into the unexplained. Every story has layers, and every layer brings us closer to the truth or deeper into the mystery. So grab a seat, turn down the lights, and get ready to dive into the unknown. This is the Deep Dive. Okay, so we're diving into some really fascinating stuff today. Vanishing ships, missing planes, whispers of strange forces at work. We're talking about the Bermuda Triangle.
And what I think is so interesting is that this idea of the Bermuda Triangle, it's got this hold on our imaginations, even though officially it doesn't even exist.
Exactly.
Like you won't find it on any official nautical chart, no maps or anything.
It's true. It's like this phantom zone everybody's heard of, you know, roughly kind of between Miami, Bermuda, Puerto Rico. But like you said, it's not really about the actual geography as much as it is the stories.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? About how we react to not knowing things as humans, you know?
Oh, totally. It's like that feeling you get when you're a kid watching a scary movie, right? You know it's not real, but there's still that little part of you.
Yeah.
But before we get too far down the rabbit hole of spooky stories, let's take a step back. Where did this whole Bermuda Triangle thing even come from?
Okay, so one of the sources you sent actually traces it back to an article from 1950.
Oh, wow. That article you mentioned from 1950, the one with all those disappearances between Florida and Bermuda, talk about a good setup for a mystery, right?
Yeah.
9 planes a boat, over 135 people vanished. That's going to get people's attention.
Exactly. And that's really when it captured the public imagination. And then a few years later, Argosy magazine runs that cover story with that big, ominous triangle, superimposed over the ocean, and boom, the Bermuda Triangle is officially a thing.
And talk about an image that sticks with you, right?
Oh, yeah.
But it's funny how that simple triangle shape, which really was just chosen for visual impact, has come to define this whole mystery, because there's no real scientific basis for that shape. It's purely storytelling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It really shows how when we talk about these mysteries, the stories we tell, they become just as important as the actual facts sometimes.
Yeah. Which brings us to those tantalizing cases of disappearances.
Right.
And you've even got Christopher Columbus in your research. His encounter with the unexplained compass going haywire, a fireball in the sky, it's almost too perfect.
Right. Almost. Because while those details might seem to fit the whole Bermuda Triangle narrative at first glance, they actually have much more likely explanations that are rooted in just natural phenomena.
Okay.
A fireball witnessed at sea could very well just be a meteor and a compass acting up. Well, that points to magnetic declination, which is something sailors have known about and dealt with for centuries.
So it's like a reality check. Okay, those things happen. But then you've got that strange light Columbus mentions, and you start to wonder.
It's so tempting to draw a line from there to something paranormal. But a much more likely scenario is that he was looking at just a land-based light source that was misinterpreted because of the distance and, conditions at sea.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so maybe those early accounts are a little shaky. But then you get to a case that really embodies the Bermuda Triangle mystique. And that's Flight 19, 5 Navy planes just vanishing without a trace. Now, that's a story that sends chills down your spine.
Oh, here we go.
Where do we even start with that one?
It's the case that kind of kicked off the whole legend, isn't it? 5 Navy planes just gone.
Poof. Vanished.
And then the rescue plane, the one they sent out to find them.
Oh, don't remind me.
Gone too.
Double poof. It's like the ocean just swallowed them up. And to this day, people are still analyzing the radio transmissions from that day, hoping for some kind of clue as to what happened. Just like that. It's like, what could possibly explain that?
Well, it's easy to jump to paranormal explanations, right? But I think what's really interesting about Flight 19 is what it tells us about how easy it is for people to misjudge things, even experienced people, and how that can lead to serious consequences.
Okay, so you're talking about human error then.
Exactly. And in this case, the source points to the pilot, Lieutenant Charles Taylor.
Okay.
Now, he was experienced, right? But it seems like he got disoriented during the flight. And reports suggest that he might have mistaken this chain of islands in the Bahamas for the Florida Keys, which meant that he led the whole squadron way off course.
Wow. It's kind of hard to imagine making a mistake that big, especially with a whole squadron depending on you.
Yeah. But it just goes to show that even the most experienced people can make mistakes.
Yeah.
And in this case, it seems like Taylor might have also been dealing with some equipment malfunctions, which just added to the stress and confusion.
Yeah, and you can practically hear the tension in the radio logs from that flight.
Absolutely. Imagine the pressure he must have been under, responsible for his crew losing his bearings, instruments failing. It's like a recipe for disaster.
So it's not some mysterious force, but just this series of very human, very understandable mistakes.
Exactly. And it's a good reminder that sometimes the most likely explanation is the simplest one.
But then there's the rescue plane, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
ST-49 that also disappeared while they were out searching for Flight 19.
Right.
That kind of has to add fuel to the fire, right?
It does. But we have to remember there were reports of an explosion. Witnesses on a nearby ship saw it. They saw debris in the water.
So you're saying that explosion could have been the ST-49?
Exactly. And that it might have been a mechanical issue, not some Bermuda Triangle anomaly.
Huh. Okay, so we've got Flight 19, a tragic story of human error and bad luck. But what about the cases where there aren't such clear explanations?
Right.
The legend of the Bermuda Triangle talks about the Star Tiger and the Star Ariel, both of them gone without a trace. How do those cases fit into this?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting. Because while we can find plausible explanations for some disappearances like Flight 19, there are others that remain complete mysteries. And it's these unexplained cases that really capture our imaginations and keep the legend of the Bermuda Triangle alive.
It's like those unsolved cases, they grab you.
Yeah.
And it makes you want to know more. But how do you approach those mysteries without just jumping to like aliens or sea monsters or whatever?
Yeah, that's the real challenge, isn't it? To stay curious, but also to think critically. Because just because we don't immediately have an answer doesn't mean that it's automatically something supernatural.
Right. We have to keep looking for those real-world explanations.
Exactly. We have to consider every possibility. And remember, just because we don't have evidence of what happened doesn't mean we have evidence of something extraordinary happening.
Okay. So let's talk about a case where there might be another explanation. The Carroll A deering.
Oh yeah, the deering.
It's different, right?
Look, it is. It's a fascinating case. So in 1921, you've got this big cargo ship, the Deering, and it's found run aground in North Carolina.
Okay.
But get this, the ship is completely deserted, no crew. Their belongings are all still there. And there are signs that it was deliberate damage, not an accident. This is like a maritime mystery novel waiting to happen.
And every good mystery needs a good clue, right?
Sure.
What about that message in a bottle? The source mentions something about a message in a bottle tied to the Deering.
Oh, right, yeah. Classic example of a good story spreading, even if it's not totally true. The message claimed that the Deering was attacked by pirates, which turned out to be a hoax. But the real mystery is what was found on the ship itself.
Okay. What do we find?
Well, the captain's logbook, for one. It hints at some serious problems between the captain and his first mate. Even mentions some threats made against the captain.
So not pirates, but a mutiny? Is that what you're thinking?
Could be. The source also mentions a witness who saw a man at the helm of the ship. And the description didn't match the captain at all.
Really?
Yeah, a red-headed man, I think it was. So put that together with the captain's concerns about his crew. And it really starts to look like a mutiny gone wrong.
So the truth really can be stranger than fiction, you know? Part of me still wants to believe in those fantastical explanations.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's more exciting that way, right?
Right. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. But, you know, as spine-chilling as these stories are, the stuff you guys dug up about the science behind it, just as fascinating. Like, have you heard about rogue waves?
Rogue waves, oh yeah.
They can reach over 100 feet high. 100 feet.
Yeah, those are the ones that you used to think were just, sailors' tales, right?
Right. Like, oh, sure, you saw a wave taller than a building.
Exactly. But guess what?
What?
Turns out they're real. We've got proof now.
No way!
Oh yeah, they're actually more common than we thought.
Really?
Especially in certain areas with powerful currents. So you get a few things coming together in just the wrong way.
Boom. Mega wave.
Exactly.
Talk about a recipe for disaster. It's like the ocean equivalent of those videos you see of like a perfectly balanced house of cards suddenly collapsing.
It makes you realize, Mother Nature.
Hmm.
We're just visitors in her house.
And she doesn't always tidy up before guests arrive. But what about those stories of compasses going haywire in the triangle? Is that true?
It's true that compasses can act a little funky in that area,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not because of some mystical force field. One of your sources actually explained it really well. They called it magnetic declination.
Magnetic what now?
Yeah, it's a mouthful. Basically, the Earth's magnetic field. It's not as simple as just pointing north and south, as straightforward as it seems,
Oh, really?
Yeah, it actually shifts and changes over time. So a compass might point to what we call magnetic north, but that's not always the same as true north.
Wow. So your compass could be leading you astray and you'd have no idea.
Exactly. And back in the day, before they really understood all this, it caused a lot of confusion for sailors.
I bet. I mean, you're out there on the open ocean, you're relying on your compass to get you home, and it's giving you bad directions. No wonder those early sailors were so superstitious.
It's like if your GPS suddenly started telling you to drive into a lake.
Right. You'd probably think twice before trusting it again. Speaking of trusting your gut, one of the sources you sent mentioned how extreme stress can completely mess with your decision-making. Something about the amygdala hijack.
Oh, yeah, the amygdala hijack. That's fascinating stuff. It's this little part of your brain, right? And it's basically in charge of your fear response, that fight or flight instinct we all have.
Okay, so what happens when it gets hijacked?
So picture this, right? You're lost at sea, you've been drifting for days, you're running out of supplies. Your brain is basically on high alert, right?
Next level, 100.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's when your amygdala can take over. You start acting impulsively, maybe even doing things that seem completely irrational later on.
Oh, wow. So even the most experienced captain could make a bad call because their brain is basically short-circuiting?
It's a possibility, yeah. Your source gave a chilling example. Drinking seawater.
Oh, no.
Yeah, in that situation when you're desperate for hydration, it might seem like the obvious solution.
But it just makes things worse.
Exactly.
So, okay, we've got rogue waves, we've got confused compasses, we've even got our own brains working against us.
Right.
You'd think that would be enough to sink the mystery, righty?
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
But people are still drawn to that idea that the Bermuda Triangle is cursed.
I get it.
Yeah,
It's a good story.
it's a great story.
And one of the sources you sent over, it really got me thinking. It talked about how powerful those early accounts were, even if they were based on rumors and speculation.
Oh, yeah, totally. It's like the game we played as kids, right? Telephone.
Exactly. The story gets passed around, and who knows what it'll sound like by the end.
Plus, let's be real, sometimes truth is
Way less interesting.
exactly. We like a little mystery, right? A little intrigue.
Of course. And don't forget, that name, the Bermuda Triangle, it's catchy.
Oh, it's perfect. It's like it was made for a movie poster.
It's true. And those old Pulp Fiction magazines, they knew how to spin a yarn.
They sure did. And maybe that's part of what keeps this whole thing afloat, Our brains are hardwired to look for patterns, even when they're not really there.
But absolutely. It's like we can't help ourselves. We want explanations, even if it means blaming it on a curse.
It's true. I mean, think about it. If you saw a bunch of random dots, wouldn't you try to connect them? Make a picture.
We're always trying to make sense of things, make order out of chaos. It's a survival instinct.
It all comes back to survival. But in this case, maybe that instinct leads to a good story instead of, the actual truth.
Maybe. But isn't that part of the fun of it all?
Absolutely. A little mystery keeps things interesting. So there you have it, folks. The Bermuda Triangle. Is it cursed? Probably not. But if this deep dive has taught us anything, it's that approaching things at a healthy dose of curiosity and a critical mind is key. We should always be asking questions, looking at things from different angles.
And never losing that sense of wonder.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this depth dive into the Bermuda Triangle. It's a mystery that continues to capture our imaginations, even if the answers are more about science than the supernatural. Until next time. And that's a wrap for this episode of The Deep Dive. I hope you enjoyed today's exploration into today's mystery, and that it gave you some valuable insights to think about. If you found this episode helpful, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated on all our future deep dives. As always, thanks for diving deep with us today. Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.